Welcome back. Please like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Welcome to the Daily Brief, everyone. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today we have some very big news from the White House regarding the global energy market.
That's right. On Friday, President Trump hosted a major summit. He invited the top executives from the biggest oil and gas companies in the United States to discuss a massive project.
It's all about Venezuela, isn't it? This follows that huge military operation where Nicolas Maduro was captured.
Exactly. Now that the situation has changed, President Trump wants to completely restructure the energy landscape in South America. He actually told these oil CEOs to rush back into the country.
Wow, rush back. That sounds very urgent. What is the main goal of the meeting?
Well, President Trump is calling for $100 billion in private investment. The goal is to repair and modernize Venezuela's oil infrastructure. You know, a lot of those facilities have been neglected for years.
Right, they need a lot of work. And I heard President Trump made an interesting point about history during the meeting.
He did. He reminded the executives that American companies were the original architects of the Venezuelan oil industry. He said the United States is now committed to reclaiming those assets. He was actually quite critical of previous administrations for letting those resources be seized in the past.
So how does he plan to protect these new investments? I imagine the companies are a bit nervous about the risks.
You're right, but President Trump has a plan for that. He promised that the U.S. government will provide direct security and oversight. Basically, the U.S. will take a management role over the oil exports to make sure everything is protected.
That's a huge commitment. It sounds like part of his energy dominance strategy, right?
Exactly. The administration believes that by controlling this oil, they can lower gas prices here at home and keep us safe from global market shocks.
I see. It's about not relying on adversarial regimes. But Alex, aren't there critics of this plan?
Oh, definitely. Some people are worried about the U.S. effectively running another country's economy. But President Trump maintained that this partnership is a necessary step. He wants to secure American interests and bring prosperity back to our side of the world.
It's certainly a massive shift in policy. Thanks for breaking that down for us, Alex.
Anytime. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our daily news update. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today, we have some very big news that could directly affect your bank account and your monthly bills.
Definitely. We're talking about a major new proposal from President Trump. He is taking aim at credit card companies to help Americans who are struggling with debt.
Oh, I saw his post about this on social media. He wants to lower the interest rate significantly, right?
Exactly. President Trump announced that he intends to cap or limit credit card interest rates at 10% for 1 year.
Wow, only 10%? That is a huge change. You know, many people are currently paying 20% or even 30% in interest every single month. That makes it so hard to pay off the original balance.
It really does. The president said his goal is to stop financial institutions from ripping off the public. He believes this move will provide immediate relief to middle-class families who are feeling the squeeze of a fluctuating economy.
Right, because the cost of living is such a big topic right now. So when would this 10% cap actually start? Is it happening tomorrow?
Not quite. The White House indicated the plan is scheduled to go into effect on January 20th. That date is special because it's the first anniversary of President Trump's second inauguration.
That's a very symbolic date. But Alex, how does he plan to make this happen? Can he just change the rates by himself?
Well, that's the big question. President Trump mentioned he wants to work with Congress to pass a formal law. However, if they can't reach a bipartisan agreement quickly, he hinted that he might use an executive action to get it done.
I see. So he's prepared to move fast. But what are the experts saying? I imagine the banks aren't very happy about losing that interest income.
You're right, Jamie. Some market analysts are worried. They say a hard cap like this might make banks more nervous. They might stop giving credit cards to high-risk borrowers because the 10% return isn't worth the risk for them.
Interesting. So it's a balance. It helps people with current debt, but it might make it harder for some people to get a new card in the future.
Exactly. His supporters are praising it as a bold strike against Wall Street, while others are waiting to see if there will be legal challenges.
Wow, it's definitely a story to keep an eye on. Thanks for the breakdown, Alex.
No problem. Thanks for listening, everyone. See you next time. Welcome back to the show. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today, we're looking at some very serious news coming out of the Middle East.
Right. We're talking about the escalating unrest in Iran. It's actually the most significant wave of protests the country has seen in decades. Reports say at least 42 people have died as these protests spread to all the major cities.
It's really intense, Alex. To control the situation, the Iranian government has started a nationwide internet blackout. They're trying to stop people from communicating or sharing videos. They've even deployed the military to guard strategic infrastructure like power plants and government buildings.
Exactly. But the world is definitely paying attention. In fact, President Trump just issued a very strong warning to the Iranian leaders. He declared that the world is watching and made it clear that the United States stands firmly with the Iranian people in their quest for freedom.
Wow, that's a big statement. And he isn't the only one speaking up. Secretary of State Marco Rubio echoed those sentiments. He said the U.S. is prepared to support the brave people of Iran as they confront a regime that has suppressed their rights for a long time.
It feels like the administration is returning to that maximum pressure campaign we've heard about before. They are using this moment to further isolate the Iranian government on the global stage.
Right. And the Iranian government is pushing back. On Saturday, their army vowed to thwart the enemy's plots. When they say the enemy, they are clearly talking about the support coming from Washington.
It's such a volatile situation. Volatile is a good word for our learners to know. It means a situation that can change suddenly or become dangerous. We've seen viral videos of everyone from students to elderly citizens defying security forces in the streets of Tehran.
It's heartbreaking to see the violence, but President Trump has signaled that he will not tolerate lethal force against peaceful demonstrators. The White House even hinted at new sanctions.
Right. Sanctions are economic punishments used to pressure a government. The White House warned there will be severe consequences if the violence doesn't cease.
It's a fast-moving story, and the stakes are incredibly high.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us for this update. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to the Daily Pulse. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today we're talking about a huge change in the American housing market. Alex, have you noticed how expensive houses have become lately? It is a common struggle for many people.
Oh, absolutely. It feels nearly impossible for many people to buy their first home. But President Trump just announced a major policy shift to address that exact problem.
Right. The White House is moving to ban large institutional investors, like hedge funds and private equity firms, from buying single-family homes.
Wow, that's a massive move. President Trump described it as a necessary step to stop corporations from driving up real estate prices and pricing out individual families.
Exactly. He wants to stop these large-scale landlords from taking over the suburbs. This is actually part of his broader affordability tour. He's traveling to talk about lowering the cost of housing, energy, and even healthcare.
It makes a lot of sense from a family perspective. If a big company with millions of dollars is bidding against a young couple for the same house, the couple usually loses.
Exactly. The president's goal is to increase the inventory, which means the supply, of homes available for regular citizens. By removing the big investors, the administration hopes to cool down those rapidly accelerating prices we've seen lately.
I heard that the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Scott Turner, is already working on the regulatory framework to make this a reality.
That's right, they are moving fast. But as you can imagine, the reaction has been very polarized.
Really? So not everyone is happy about it?
Not exactly. While many housing advocates are cheering, some market analysts are worried about unintended consequences.
Such as...
Well, critics suggest that if you take that big corporate money out of the market, it might actually slow down new construction. They also worry about liquidity, which is basically how easily money flows through the real estate sector.
I see. So it's a balance between helping families and keeping the market moving.
Precisely. But President Trump is staying firm. He says he wants to prioritize domestic stability and homeownership for the forgotten man over the interests of big financial institutions.
It's a bold strategy, especially with the midterm elections coming up.
It sure is. Thanks for joining us today to break this down, Alex.
Always a pleasure. We'll see you all in the next episode.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today, we are looking at some very serious news regarding global security and new military technology.
Right. Everyone is talking about Russia's latest move. They've once again deployed the Oreshnik hypersonic missile in Ukraine.
Now, hypersonic is a big word for our listeners. Can you explain what makes this missile so different, Alex?
Of course. Basically, it travels at several times the speed of sound. It also carries multiple warheads. Because it's so fast and moves in a specific way, it's almost impossible for current defense systems to shoot it down. It's like trying to hit a bullet with another bullet.
Wow, that's terrifying. Military analysts are calling it a deliberate show of force. So, how is the White House reacting?
Well, President Trump has been fully briefed and is monitoring the escalation very closely. Interestingly, the U.S. Air Force just landed the E-4B, commonly known as the Doomsday Plane, near Washington.
Doomsday Plane. That sounds like a Hollywood movie title, you know?
It does, doesn't it? But it's actually a standard protocol. It's a specialized plane used during periods of high tension to ensure that President Trump and military leaders can maintain control and communicate safely from the air.
I see. So it's about being prepared. You know, President Trump often uses the phrase peace through strength. Is that the strategy he's using here?
Exactly. While President Trump has been critical of what he calls endless wars, he also believes that having the strongest military prevents conflict. He's actually using this Oreshnik news to tell Congress that the U.S. must modernize its nuclear triad.
The nuclear triad. That refers to the 3 ways a country can launch weapons, by land, sea, or air, right?
Exactly right, Jamie. He wants to ensure American technology remains superior to any rival.
Meanwhile, the international community is quite worried. Many leaders in Europe are calling for renewed peace negotiations to avoid further escalation.
Right, but the Kremlin is staying defiant. They claim their actions are just a response to Western provocations.
It's a very tense diplomatic balancing act for President Trump.
It really is. We'll have to wait and see how the administration moves forward.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us for this update.
See you next time. Welcome to the Daily Post. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Jamie.
Today, we're diving into a story that sounds like it's straight out of a history book, but it's actually happening right now. We're talking about Greenland.
Right. This weekend, the news was full of reports about President Trump renewing his push for the United States to take control of the island.
But the leaders in Greenland aren't exactly rolling out the red carpet. Prime Minister Nielsen and 4 other major party leaders issued a very firm statement rejecting the idea.
Exactly. They said Greenland's future must be decided by its people. That's a pretty clear message, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. But you have to wonder, why is President Trump so interested? I mean, Greenland is huge, but it's mostly covered in ice.
Well, it's not just about the landscape, Jamie. It's about what's underneath. Greenland has vast, untapped mineral resources, specifically rare earth minerals.
Oh, right. For our listeners, those are minerals used in almost all high-tech items, from your smartphone to advanced defense systems.
Exactly. President Trump believes this is vital for American national security. His advisors are even calling this aggressive strategy the Donroe Doctrine.
Wow, that sounds intense. But this Donroe Doctrine is really worrying our European allies. Denmark, which currently has sovereignty over Greenland, is very upset.
To say the least, some Danish officials even warned of a shoot-first policy if U.S. assets enter their territory without permission. That's a very serious warning.
It really is. However, the White House isn't backing down. Aides say that securing a deal for Greenland is a top priority for the president's second term.
It's a real power struggle. The president wants to counter Chinese and Russian influence in the North. He even said that the map of the world is always changing.
It's a total deadlock for now. Deadlock is a great word for our learners. It means a situation where no progress can be made.
That's a perfect description, Jamie. It will be interesting to see if President Trump uses trade leverage to change their minds later on.
We'll definitely keep an eye on this. Thanks for joining us today.
See you next time.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's report. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. We have some major news today regarding national security. President Trump has just announced a plan that is really shaking up the defense industry.
It's a huge move. President Trump is asking Congress for an extra $500 billion in defense funding every year. He wants to use that money to modernize the military and significantly expand the U.S. fleet.
Wow, $500 billion? That is a massive increase. But there is a very big condition attached to that money, isn't there?
Right. He has issued a directive that bans any company receiving these funds from using the cash for stock buybacks or dividends.
Let's pause there for a second for our listeners. Stock buybacks and dividends are basically ways companies give profits back to their investors to keep their stock prices high.
Exactly. But President Trump was very clear about his goal. He said he wants the money to go toward factories and firepower, not executive bonuses. He wants to see real products and new technology, not just higher stock prices.
You know, that makes a lot of sense if you look at his past comments. He has been very frustrated with project delays and costs going over budget. He mentioned that a heavy-handed government approach is necessary to make sure the U.S. taxpayer gets the best value.
Right. He's trying to reshape what people call the military-industrial complex. By cutting off the cash for shareholders, he's forcing giant companies like Lockheed Martin to put that money back into domestic manufacturing and research.
I noticed that the reaction from the market has been pretty mixed.
Definitely. The legacy contractors, those older, bigger companies, are seeing their stock prices become very volatile because they can't reward their investors as easily. But younger tech firms like Anduril are actually welcoming the change. They prefer this production-focused model.
So it's a big shift in how the government does business with these defense giants.
It really is. President Trump remains unmoved by the market's unease. For him, the priority is total American military dominance in a dangerous world.
It's certainly a bold strategy. We'll have to see how Congress reacts to that $500 billion request.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for this update.
See you next time.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today, we're looking at a major update in the world of technology and global politics.
Right. It looks like there is a potential breakthrough in the chip war. Reports say China is prepared to approve the purchase of NVIDIA's H200 chips for commercial use.
Wow, the H200. Those are some of the most advanced chips on the planet, right? They're basically the brains behind the newest AI.
Exactly. For the last few years, trade between the U.S. and China has been very difficult, especially for high-end tech. But this move could be a big shift.
Now, we have to remember the context here. Under President Trump's current term, the U.S. has kept very strict controls on what technology can be sent abroad.
That's true. President Trump has a complex task. On one hand, he wants American companies like NVIDIA to win an economic victory by selling their products globally. He wants them to stay the most valuable chip makers in the world.
But on the other hand, he has to think about national security.
Precisely. That is why this deal is limited. The chips are only for non-military applications, like data centers and consumer AI services. Think of things like chatbots or medical research.
I see. So they can't be used for the military. But how can the U.S. be sure?
Well, the Trump administration is being very tough. They are demanding ironclad guarantees. For our listeners, ironclad means a promise that is impossible to break. They want to ensure the tech isn't diverted for state surveillance.
That makes sense. It sounds like NVIDIA is caught in a geopolitical tug-of-war. They are being pulled between two superpowers.
That's a great way to put it, Jamie. NVIDIA's stock price actually went up after this news. Investors are feeling optimistic that a middle ground can be found.
It's a huge test case. If President Trump can negotiate a deal that helps American business while keeping the country safe, it could change how we trade technology forever.
Definitely. We are still waiting for official confirmation from Beijing, but the world is watching closely.
It's amazing how much these tiny chips matter. Thanks for joining us today to break this down.
See you next time. Welcome back to the show. Today we are diving deep, literally, to the bottom of the ocean.
Oh, I like that. Are we talking about shipwrecks and sunken gold?
Not exactly, but it is a kind of modern treasure. We're talking about Japan's ambitious plan to mine rare earth minerals from the seabed.
Rare earth minerals. That sounds like something out of a science fiction movie. What are they exactly?
Well, they are special metals with names like dysprosium and neodymium. You might not hear about them every day, but you use them constantly. They are essential for smartphone screens, electric car motors, and even high-tech weapons.
Wow, so they are pretty important. But why go all the way to the bottom of the sea? Isn't that incredibly difficult?
It's very difficult and quite expensive, but Japan feels it's a matter of national survival. You see, China recently decided to curb or limit the export of these minerals to Japanese companies.
Right, I remember reading about that. China calls it a dual-use ban to stop materials from reaching foreign militaries.
Exactly. And because China has a monopoly, meaning they control almost the entire global market, Japan is in a very tough spot.
So they are looking for a way out. But what about the environment? I imagine mining the ocean floor isn't great for the sea life.
You're right, Jamie. Environmental groups are very concerned. However, the Japanese government maintains that it's a necessary step to secure their own stable supply.
This actually fits into a bigger global picture, doesn't it?
It does. President Trump has been very supportive of Japan's move. He's been pushing for a strategy called friend-shoring.
Friend-shoring. That's a new term for me. What does that mean?
It basically means moving supply chains to friendly allied nations. President Trump wants to build a coalition of countries that don't have to rely on China for critical resources.
I see. So President Trump views Japan's mining project as a model for how other allies should respond to economic pressure.
Precisely. He praised Japan for being proactive. It's all about resource security and independence.
It's amazing how much a few rocks at the bottom of the ocean can change global politics.
It really is. The whole world is watching this test very closely.
Well, I hope they find what they need. Thanks for chatting, Alex.
Anytime, Jamie. See you all next time. Welcome back to the Daily Update. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today we're diving into a major legal battle involving President Trump and a very large sum of money. Imagine $10 billion just stopping.
That's a lot of zeros, Jamie. So here's the scoop. A federal judge in Manhattan just blocked President Trump's plan to freeze $10 billion in welfare funding.
Right. This funding was headed to 5 specific states: New York, California, Colorado, Illinois, and Minnesota. These are often called blue states because they are led by Democrats.
Exactly. Now, why did President Trump want to stop the money in the first place? Well, the administration says there is widespread fraud, basically people lying to get money they don't deserve.
Specifically in daycare centers, right? I read that President Trump's decision was influenced by viral reports about fraudulent schemes in Minnesota. He wants to make sure taxpayer money is handled correctly.
Precisely. But the states didn't agree with his move. They sued the government, and Judge Arun Subramanian just stepped in. He issued something called a temporary restraining order.
For our listeners, that's a legal way of saying, wait, stop everything. The judge said the government must maintain the status quo.
Status quo. That's a great phrase for our intermediate learners. It's Latin, but we use it in English to mean the way things are right now. So for now, the money keeps flowing.
Exactly. The states argue that a total freeze is unconstitutional. They believe the president is overreaching his power. Plus, they say cutting off billions of dollars would hurt millions of low-income families and children who really need that help.
Wow, it's a complicated balance. But the White House isn't backing down at all. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said President Trump is determined to ensure that federal resources aren't wasted or stolen.
So the legal fight continues. It's a classic example of the tension between the federal government and state leaders.
You know, the outcome of this case is going to be huge. It will change how welfare programs are audited and managed in the future.
Definitely. It's a lot to think about. Thanks for breaking it down with me, Alex.
Anytime, Jamie. And thanks to our listeners for joining us. We'll see you next time.